I have known Ginger for over 25 years and consider her a close friend. So it's important for me to share this conversation with you. In this deeply moving episode, she shares the story of an unexpected awakening. In her 40s, after her ex husband was wounded in Afghanistan, the trauma didn't end on the battlefield, it entered her home. As the spouse of a combat veteran, she faced the silent toll of secondary PTSD, the emotional isolation, and the unraveling effects of years in narcissistic relationships. What followed was a soul deep reckoning, an awakening that shattered illusions and sparked a journey of truth, healing, and spiritual rebirth. This is her journey of awakening through her battlefield of the soul.
Welcome to Awakening Soul Divinity, your sacred space for deep healing and transformation. Listen to inspiring conversations with healing experts, spiritual guides, and teachers as we explore ancient wisdom, modern healing, and powerful stories of change. I'll also share practical insights from my personal journey, from spiritual crisis to inner purpose. Whether you're seeking to overcome anxiety, embrace your true nature, or awaken your higher self, this podcast offers guidance to help you transform your life and elevate collective consciousness.
Hey, I'm Caroline Rena, and I appreciate you being here on Awakening Soul Divinity. This particular message is a trigger warning. Some parts of this conversation may be emotionally triggering, particularly for highly sensitive people, empaths, and those carrying deep trauma or grief. Please honor your needs, self-care, watch slowly, pause if necessary, grab a blanket and a pillow, or come back when it feels supportive to you. You are our first priority. Thank you for being here. Okay. Ginger. Welcome, Ginger. I am so excited you decided to join me on this journey, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course.
I wouldn't do it for anybody else, just you. So.
Okay. That's good to hear. Okay. So I mentioned quite a few things that you've been through. So can you go a little bit deeper into the trauma that you experienced, so our audience can hear just how profound it is, and how your personal healing journey got you where you are now and into the work that you do?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think this has just been, the unraveling is sort of the way I see it of my own upbringing. When he was wounded, obviously we won't talk about too in depth, but I will say things. One of the terms we started to use in the beginning of that was like, this was our new normal, right? And I'm not sure who gave us that or where that came into play, but our lives got so turned upside down so very quickly. And it was two situations where he had gone over to Afghanistan on this. We were already separated. We had separated due to some indiscretions on his part from another previous trip that they had done to Uzbekistan. And so we had decided, though, that we were going to wait to divorce. We would separate. His things would go into storage, and we would deal with it when he came back from this, what was supposed to be the last combat trip that he would ever take, And so I agreed. And I would stay and keep our daughter secure, keep her in the same house, and not make any real big decisions until he could get through this one last thing. So he went, got wounded pretty quickly, as a stomach wound. So, because this is vital, because this does not happen that often. I think we were one of a few cases where he went over there, he got wounded, he came home for 6 weeks, he went back, And 4 months, 3 months later, as it was quiet over the winter, come March, they had an insider attack, and he was wounded again, nearly fatally. I believed he did die on the helicopter on the second wounding. So he'd gone over. We decided to hold everything. He gets wounded. He comes home real quick. He's home for 6 weeks. That was a gunshot wound to the stomach, and he'd had his intestines taken out, and they had to cut a bunch out. He had a lot of shrapnel from that. He wasn't even a really where they X-lapped the stomach. He still had sutures, and he literally, while he was home, his captain and team had rolled over a 300-pound IED, and it had killed some people and had wounded his captain, where he lost a leg immediately. And so that his team was over there with no captain and some wounded guys. And so he had to get back quickly. So he jumped on a
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
Remember where you were at. So I want to like clarify a couple of things. There may be some graphic description here. So if you aren't able because you're empathic or whatever, just ground yourself and breathe.
Sure.
Just make sure you do that to my audience. The other thing is when you describe certain things like the IED or anything like that, can you just say what it is in case people don't understand what that is? So
of course,
that's all.
Okay.
And anything
the IED is an improvised explosive device that gets planted in the ground along roadsides and so forth and so on, that these soldiers are traveling quite frequently. And usually they have sweepers go through and sweep before but his guys were out on a mission. Of course, remember, he was home recovering from this gunshot wound. It came to my knowledge years later that the work he was doing with his team over there, they were making a dent in the terrorism that was going on for the villagers and so forth. They were trying to protect. Where we were was he was home on this, recovering from a gunshot wound that he'd received. So he'd left his team over there. They were still fighting without him there. And he was home sitting, and he felt very restless, I'm sure,
Makes sense,
So while he was home, though, his team did roll over this IED. It did so much damage. And of course, he's home sitting helpless. So he really pushed to get over there as quickly as he could. He got on a resupply bird almost without permission. So I have to state how these guys kind of do their own thing, And
this is also separate. Let me clarify that. So he was in the special forces. So special forces and regular military don't have the same. They don't follow the same guidelines. So it's not, if you have ever experienced something like that, it's a complete, they can do certain things that people in the regular military cannot.
Conventional army. Yes.
That's absolutely the way to put it. Yeah.
Yes. So he got back over there. On the way, he picked up his new captain, who was a 24-year-old young man, and went ahead and escorted him on over to the team, got back over there, and they sat tight for about 3 months. This was the winter. When he went back, it was December, I think, right around there. So things were very quiet, and we continued on with life. He healed up from that first gunshot wound very nicely, and went back to work. So come March, they start working again. They are inside their forward operating base, their FOB, and they are doing a pre-mission brief for something they're about to go out to do some work. At the last minute, there was an ANP, which is your Afghan National Police truck, came in and wanted to get some gas because they were working with them. So that was not unusual. And they went ahead and made the call to let this truck come in to gas up. And as it came in, it turned, it backed up. And literally there was a guy on the back. As he opened up fire on the team and everybody within that area, hitting, I don't remember the actual count. I know there were 10 or more injured, my husband being one of them, to which his captain, the new 24-year-old, was standing right next to him. He was killed instantly. And that bullet went through him and hit my husband in through the right nostril and embedded behind his optic nerve in that eye and spun him around. And then he was shot up the back about 9 times, which paralyzed him instantly from severing his sciatic nerve. So he fell next to the captain and he was paralyzed and not moving, and they thought he was dead. So they didn't go to his aid right away. So my ex-husband, and there were many bullets, so he tourniqueted himself, and eventually somebody realized he was moving. And by the time, I mean, they got somebody to him, and then they got him evac'd out. This would be, the second wounding and what really changed our lives. The phone call I received was from him and on a satellite phone while he was in the helicopter being evac'd. And I knew things were never going to be the same, because I asked him, I think he had said, well, I've been shot again. And I said, how bad? And he said, really bad. And then the phone went dead. I then, receive a call from commanders, and people start calling, and they know I know somehow. I can't remember exactly how that all played out, because you just go into a different mindset. You have a plan for when things like this happen. As someone who, this was not our first rodeo, we'd been many times, he'd been many times. And so, but everything kind of goes out the window, because you're never really expecting, this.
Yeah.
And not only that, there were several other members on the same team, and I was the FRG team wife who was to contact family members.
FRG.
FRG, Family Readiness Group. It used to be called something else. I cannot remember what they called it in the beginning, but they changed it to Family Readiness Group. And this is your support when your husband's gone. These are your wives that are in Special Forces. You're on a 12-man team, sometimes 14-man. That is your family. And I was my husband or ex-husband was the team daddy, they would say, and I was team mom. And so these were my people. And not only did I have my own situation and children and stuff to worry about, but I also had my extended family, my SF family. And anyways, within that time, they start to do the notifications. Notifications are done on different levels. If you're a VSI, which he was very seriously injured, that changes you to being on a status of you have to be ready to leave, to go to Dover, to go to Germany, or wherever they're going to send them, because they have to get them to the quickest place that can provide that medical care that they need. So my kids, we got that all kind of squared away. And I got in the car. I did not take a flight. I went ahead and drove straight to Walter Reed, which was where they were going to be bringing him. And it took a couple days to get him there, but they got me set up in a hotel. And so our new normal began. He arrived on a super ambulance, what they call a super ambulance, with some of the rest of the guys that was wounded with him at the same time. And by then we had the families there, and our lives started over in a very chaotic way. We were at Walter Reed for 2.5 years, probably trying to save the leg. He didn't lose it right away. We tried many things, many surgeries. He opted to have the leg amputated finally. Things started to come to light in the hospital. As I stated, there had been some infidelity on his part before. I was hoping that maybe this would help change. And we even talked about reconciling, and we did try that. I in addition, stayed with him an additional 4 years to care for him after this, him being wounded, and tried to work it out. And as that unraveled, so did my whole life. Mm-hmm. With him, started to become very apparent that I did not know who I was married to.
And you didn't know who you were either, right?
Well, of course.
Right.
I didn't know who I was. I had become his biggest cheerleader, his biggest supporter. I moved where he moved. I followed him everywhere he went. His rule, it was law in our house. And there was, I realized very quickly that to change this life was going to require some change on my part and some self-discovery, which I think I'd been avoiding for many years, you know.
Yeah,
So,
and I'd like to kind of segue this into what that was like for you because like I mentioned earlier, we've known each other for over 25 years. So
yes.
when I knew you, I didn't know any of this stuff. I knew
Right.
parts of it when we talked later, but
Right.
what I'm honored about is the fact because going through something like this is not easy. I don't easy is not even a word in
If
this.
you're in a supportive relationship, it's hard.
Well, right,
Or a
exactly.
healthy relationship,
This is
it's
not
hard.
normal. This is
It
not a
was
normal situation. So
right.
you going through not only because I know you well enough, I'm just going to tweak in a little bit here, but
Sure.
you going through the things that you went through as a child,
Yes.
moving into the next thing and moving into the next thing and moving into the next thing. It's like they call this complex PTSD
Yes.
and then secondary PTSD from her ex-husband's wounding.
Yes.
So it's like all this stuff just stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked.
Great
And
big onion.
yeah, well, now we're peeling the
We're
onion. We're
peeling it back.
stacking first, and then we're going to
Yes.
peel the onion, right? So there was a point in time where Ginger was going through a lot of not really knowing what direction to go in her life and doing. And obviously I'll let you, if you want to get into that, I'll let you do
Yeah.
it. But she little by little, because of the PTSD, began to destroy or
Sure.
self-sabotage
Self-sabotage.
her own life, right? And through that process, there was a point, and here this comes in, where we reconnected and I ended
Yes.
up being with her visiting. And I'd like for her to kind of go into a little bit of what brought you to where we reconnected and
Yes.
then what you experienced with the work that we did together and then where that took you on the other side. Because if
Sure.
it wasn't for all of this stuff, like you don't present now the way you did when I was with you
Sure.
first time.
Yeah.
So I want people to just get an inkling of what led to that,
Sure.
and then, like I said, just kind of give a little bit of a description of the work and then how you felt after it. So,
Okay. So I'll give a brief just so we come out of the wounding and what sort of happened the 4 years following. So we get through the catastrophic part. We start to live a sort of normal life. We go back home from Walter Reed. He has his prosthetics. I care for him through all of this. And he had to go back in, I remember, for a surgery. But yeah, so the nurse had brought his phone out to me after he'd gone back in for the surgery. And, you know, I had to sit with this for a minute because there were still I still felt like there were things going on in Walter Reed that none of that came out until much later when we actually finally went through our divorce. But the indiscretions had been quite, you know, here I was, this young wife still at the time. And I just believed him, you know, that we were going to reconcile and things were going to be okay. And that if I just stuck in there with him and helped him get through this, that it would all work out and things would be fine. So anyways, cut to the surgery and the nurse comes to hand me the phone and she doesn't realize she's giving me the best gift she could have ever given me. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard that someone gave me a box of darkness one time. This too was a gift. It opened my eyes because yes, I looked in his phone. I was able to figure out his password, you know, and there it was. There was no misreading of his intent of how he was going to start a new life with this other woman who I'd caught him in the affair with 4 years prior, almost. This had been going on the whole time he was at Walter Reed, with also some other indiscretions that we don't have to get completely into. They'll be in the book, that book that I'm working on. I was crushed to nothing, but I also was very angry. And that anger pushed me to go ahead and move forth to divorce this person, to leave this person, because I was not going to continue in a life of lies anymore. But it devastated me. And so being devastated, being a pushover, being a woman that had not been taught boundaries from childhood, trying to learn how to place boundaries with people at that point it didn't work. I wasn't respected in that way. I wasn't allowed to have boundaries. I decided that I needed to change. There were things in my life that had to change, of course. And it literally hits you like a 2x4. We call it the 2x4. It was a 2x4.
Yeah.
And there was no way for me to avoid this 2x4 anymore. That being said, eventually I did divorce him, but it destroyed my family. It destroyed our home, our family. It's taken years, years of unraveling, as you say. And that's what it was. I had to unravel why I had ended up in this position, and that how could it be all my fault? Because that's what I was, being told. It's all my fault because I was not healthy, or I was mentally ill, or whatever, because I had reactions to his abuse, which is what I now know it was. I had no idea I was in an abusive marriage. I did not know I was being controlled financially, that I was being sexually abused and assaulted by words of, there's something called marital rape. I know we have to be careful about that, but these are all things that I had been subjected to. His addiction to porn, his addiction to alcohol, his sex addiction. I had considered myself a practicing Buddhist before I married him, and that was also not allowed. I didn't realize that I had let my life become somebody else's. That was more devastating than his cheating. I made it a mission to get into therapy. But before I got into therapy and got help, I became quite an alcoholic and lived like that for many years before you and I reconnected, which, I can, if I cry, I apologize.
No, it's okay, because you'll probably make me cry too, but that's okay.
Well, it's a transformative moment in my life, and you were part of that, even though you didn't get to be there through a lot of those things. And, our husbands did what they could to keep us separate, because you can't have a supportive, strong female in your life. That may call attention to their behavior. I'm just saying. So I hadn't had a real, true, trusted friend. All I had were the friends I was allowed, that he allowed. Mm-hmm. And they had to be involved with the unit, or, the group. Very incestuous almost, those relationships, and not real supportive, these women, when it came down to it in the end of things. I think at one point, you reach out for a little help from one of them, and you're totally not expecting to get oh no, I just can't. And it's something as simple as, can you pick up my kid from school today? Cause I'm tending to here I've got a stump, a guy that's just had his leg amputated, and I'm trying to care for him. And these are your people, right? They're supposed to be your people. They were not my people. I did not. And especially after I decided to leave him, that all got cut too. So you, as a friend, long-term, very pivotal in my life to be able to continue to trust women in particular. Because those friendships I thought were my lifeline, and they were not my lifeline. So being awakened several times in a year is quite scary.
Yeah.
And it will force you to deal with things. But you coming into my life at that point, I had already done therapy, and I was still drinking to numb. This is very important, because I wasn't necessarily an alcoholic. I didn't even really like to drink. But it got me numb, so I didn't have to deal with the true deep down hurt. You coming into my life, back into my life, and being able to stay with me and help me work through, as you helped me work through some trauma from a young childhood, something that had happened when I was very small, was not only pivotal, eye-opening, it was the start of my actual healing journey. I had not done the work before that. There had not been a therapist who could even open that door before you opening that door. And then you just being honest with me about what I was eating, what was in my refrigerator, and transforming your life to think of yourself in such a way that you are actually loving yourself again. Going back to the childhood trauma, and then going back to your childhood when it was good, even, and acknowledging that child and loving that child. Because I hadn't had that. I didn't have the formative years. I had two narcissistic parents, an avoidant father, and a heavily, I would say, covert malignant mother, who was my first bully. And I can actually say my first abuser in life.
Well,
and
geez,
it's hard to say that, but
yeah, that's where we connect.
And that's why, absolutely, yeah. I think that's why we connected on those levels, because it's hard to talk about that because people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear about your mother abusing you. And I didn't want to say it.
Right. And a lot of people don't understand that.
To say that out loud.
Yeah. Right. People who've never been through something like that are like, well, I don't want to hear that. That's just.
I don't want to. Yeah, no. Right. And my mom's great and whatever.
Yeah.
And not only that, I was also uncovering the fact, not just the mother-father wounds. I had an older sister who was about 4 years older than me, who was my mother, who I call my mother's right hand. She literally abused alongside my mother, me from a very small child. As a matter of fact, I do believe it's a funny one that kind of came up recently, where I think I remember her trying to drown me as I was a small child in the back, because we used to have to take baths together. Now, it's a very young memory. I was 18 months old, maybe 2 years old, something like that. So I don't know if it's a dream. I don't know if it's an actual occurrence. It's so far back. But I do know this. I know I was being multiply abused in that household. And then there was some things as I got to be a teenager, and there was no supervision, and my parents had divorced, where I had a situation where a guy had, like an older babysitter down the street, had come in and sort of inappropriately touched me. And I do remember that. And this was the start of me not having any boundaries, or not being able to set boundaries in my own home, much less with the men in my life, which is why I ended up in an abusive marriage. And so you coming in and being very honest with me, especially about my drinking, but kind and gentle, and not pushing it, just saying, as a matter of fact, this is kind of how it is. But also seeing you lead by example as a woman who was doing this for herself, man, that just clicked, that clicked. And probably to date, one of the best things that could have happened to me. Now, that being said, I still continue to drink after that, but I had been through enough therapy and the rehab, and then with your always pushing me to do the inner work in a good way, it got me past that, where I started to be able to feel the things. And I know I'm not going to die.
That's I'm glad you brought that up, because it's so hard when we go through things. There are two things that most people want for themselves. And when you've been traumatized, you feel like you don't have it. One of them is, I need to be loved, because you were never loved. You were traumatized. And the second one is the one you just mentioned about, I'm going to die, because it feels like when you're a child and you go through any type of trauma, like you went through, it's like, it feels like whatever they can consider death, because it's so much and it's so overwhelming that as you get older,
there's no safety.
There
was no safety for me.
And as you got older, and I could see, this is my gift, and as some people might say, my curse at the same time, it's like, I can see the big picture with people.
Right.
And for you, because I've known you for so long,
right,
like I could see everything that was going on, and I know who you are. I know the powerful woman that you are. I know the creative person you are. I know the depths of your soul into your heart. I don't know why. I don't know how that works, right? But because I'd known you for so long, and because we had already had exchanges, experiences, all these different things, I was like, you know what? And I know how tough you are on both accounts. You're tough enough to reject, and you're tough enough to fight through it.
Sure.
And that's the part that I saw. And I'm like, okay, because you got the pendulum, the tough enough to
You could
fight and
see
the
it.
tough enough. Right, right. So it
You
was
could
like,
see it, but I could
that's
not
what I
see it
know. And
after a
that's
while.
usually
Right.
how it works. Most people can't see what I see.
Right.
And
Well, and it
so,
had been diminished. That's the thing
yeah,
when you live with that type of personality. And you had one very similar. We were both
right,
married to the same guy almost.
right,
Um,
right. But that's the whole
you do
piece
lose it.
where,
Yeah.
yeah, we're for you to be able to walk through that and to
Yes.
come out. And we are all still on our journey. I mean, we have our moments where we fall
Absolutely.
in the hole, and then we want to throw technology out the window, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's me.
Conversation before we started. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I mean, we all have these things happen. And but by the way, we're in a Mercury retrograde right now, so it wasn't
Big time.
surprising. Big time.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's like what you went through, and we really, in this conversation, I don't think we have enough time to go through everything that
No, it don't have to be a two-parter,
right.
maybe three-parter. I had to do three parts on my last one. Yeah.
So, but that's what I want to bring out. Like, as women, we have a tendency to feel small because of these types of things that happen to
Yes.
us, because of the things we're told about ourselves, because of the
From
things
birth.
have
Yes.
from birth that have been done as children, and as we grow older we don't know. Like, I was seething with rage, and I was so afraid, because I wasn't allowed to get angry, so I was
Yes.
not the type of
That's
person to
right.
just come out and do anything. I was so scared in my healing process that I would rage at somebody because
Yes.
I wasn't allowed to get angry. And so for women who are taught, oh, be the good girl,
Be
and just
demure,
say,
soft and
yeah,
demure.
all that stuff.
Oh,
That
especially in the South. You know
right,
that.
right. And so it doesn't fit with obviously who you are, and obviously who I am
Right.
now, because we are opening that space inside of us that's been there all along. The light, the strength, the power,
Yes.
the nurturing, the love, I mean, it's like this whole bag of wonderfulness.
Yeah.
The challenge is being able to make that decision to go through this process
It
and get on
is.
the other side. And that's why I honor you, because you were fighting me, and you've been
Oh yeah.
fighting me a lot. And I was like, okay, I'm stepping back, let her figure it out. But that's the thing that I love about you, is because you're like me in that respect. You are willing to hear that thing that you don't want to hear,
That's right.
and you step back, and
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of take it and mix it in the cauldron, so to speak, and
Yes,
you
for sure.
let things kind of cook, and then when
Yeah.
you come out, you're like, oh,
That's
and
very
then
logical. Oh, you're
that
right.
actually makes sense, right?
Yes.
So that's important for women, especially,
Yes.
to
Of course.
understand, and men. I'm not gonna discount
Oh
men.
yeah.
They've gone through things like you've been through too. I've had conversations.
Absolutely. I'm not like alone in my story for anything, but what I will say about that too is that I had to learn, first of all, how to unlearn all that crap I'd been taught, by whether it was generationally, unbeknownst to my mother teaching it to me, but she was, the bad behavior, the being reactive. This is huge. I want to say this for women, especially. Men can be this way too, and it could be very dangerous because they're stronger and have a lot more physical strength. But I will say, like, the raging
Mhm.
part that comes from the justified anger we have because we've endured abuse for so long, when you wake up to it, there are layers. For me, there were layers that I started to, once you realize what it is, you are mad, and rightfully so. And when you haven't been taught to set boundaries by your own mother or your sisters who are supposed to be your protectors, yet they're your abusers, they set you up for a lifetime of making poor choices for yourself because you don't know how to stand up for yourself. You've
Mhm.
never been given that right. You weren't allowed. You couldn't have boundaries. You couldn't say no. You couldn't cry. You couldn't be upset. You just had to sit there and be pretty. Sit there and be quiet. Sit there and be cute. Children were to be seen and not heard. And that's how we grew up in our household. And it did. I think it set me up for, I didn't have a strong, positive female role model in my life. I may have thought I did, like maybe I had an older sister who was about 9 years older than me, and I really looked up to her for the longest time, but come to find out through all the therapy that honestly, she really abandoned me.
Mm.
So abandoned by my father, abandoned by my oldest sister, because she left and went to college, and she didn't come back because she knew, but there's your golden child. And then here, and I'm the black sheep. And then my middle sister in the middle being my mom's, I was set up. I feel like I was set up to fail in my relationships in life because of my upbringing. And I did not have the ability to get away from it until I did.
Mm-hmm.
Until I took the initiative to cut off these toxic family members and people that were manipulating me and abusing me. And that would be my own mother, even when she's dying. This is the work people don't want to do for themselves because they don't want to be seen as a bad guy or the one causing problems, because you need boundaries. You have to have boundaries. And in a family that doesn't want you to have boundaries, they only benefit when you don't. So clearly it's hard work. And it didn't happen overnight, but I did not have positive female role models really until you were one of the first ones to come into my life. So that being said, I give you so much credit for pushing me gently
Did my best
in the direction I needed to go. I may have been going, no, but on the other side of that, I was going, please help me.
Yeah.
Figure out my shit.
Yeah. And that's normal for people. And I just want to clarify some things also. Like all of the things that Ginger's talking about right now is deep, 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 deep generational trauma.
Yes.
Because we are programmed through the generations, through society, through education, how to behave, because it tends to, well, it does, but it's a controlling thing. Because, but for me, when I learned about control, I think, and it could be, I'm sure it's something different in all cases, but for me, when I needed to be in control, like they teach you what they are. And when I felt out of control, I needed to be in control. And so the control piece is there on a personal level from fear,
relevant.
And then on a societal and global level from fear. So the programming, all this stuff that's been going on. And what I've found that is so pertinent and important about this whole thing is that, from my own experience, if we do not grieve everything that has happened to us, all that energy stays stuck in our bodies, and our bodies react to that. It causes disease, it causes mental, emotional, spiritual, and of course the physical breakdowns. It causes all these sorts of things. So grief work as a result of the trauma is the most important in my book, because you
got to get to the root. Once you get to the root, then you do the grieving like you are helping people do. Then they can start to really heal. Because up until that point, you can't heal a rotten, festering boil if you don't acknowledge it.
100%. Yeah. And it's also important for people who do grief work or holding space. You don't even have to be doing grief work. You're just right for other people to realize that, something happens, some kind of situation or occurrence, whatever it is, or years and years and years and years of trauma or whatever that is. You can't just walk in and say, okay, it's time to grieve. That doesn't work. Because the person has to release all these emotional energies out of their nervous system before they can even come out on the other side to be in a place where they can grieve, because they have to have an awareness. You have to have an awareness that, Well, first of all, as humans, it's our innate not duty, it's in our body, it's in the physiology to grieve, to do this grief.
Yes.
And if we don't do it, all these emotions are going to get stuffed down, which builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And one day,
Yep.
it's either going to come out on somebody else, or it's going to come out on yourself, or it's going to come
That's
out on
right.
an animal, or it's going to come out on a country.
Walking time, ticking time bomb is what I consider
Time
myself
bombs,
to have
right?
been.
And that goes on everywhere. And we've had so many generations, and that's why the ancestral healing work
Yes.
kind of loops in with the grief work, because
Right.
all of our ancestors have been through the same thing that we have.
Same thing.
And
Well,
they
and it
didn't get to grieve because no one taught
they
them.
did not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
So,
it does also set, and when I say I was kind of set up for sort of a lifetime of hardship due to this, not only did it formed me into this person who I became a people pleaser,
and
because if I could please everybody in my house, then things
they'll
were
love
smoother.
me. Yeah.
Everything they'll love me, and that's smooth. I can sense people's mood as they walk in the room, and that causes you to become an egg. You're walking on eggshells all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're sensing, and then you're preemptively, and then if you're an overthinker on top of that, you see where
My,
I'm
don't
going.
we know each other well? Yeah, I know.
So I was groomed by my own parents
Mm-hmm.
and their behavior to become a very easy target
Mm-hmm.
for, as we're also talking about, the active, covert, malignant type narcissists that are out there, which I was attracted to because, well, that was my dad or my mom. It can
Right.
be the relationship with either one you're trying to fulfill. The sex of it doesn't really matter. It's the behavior and the patterns that are
Mm-hmm.
familial that you keep going back to. And that's where, for me, I had to make that break.
Yes.
First habits to start breaking, you helped me, the food, the alcohol, and then I became addicted to breaking habits. So you can become addicted to
Oh,
anything.
oh, I know. I know. My favorite thing was being addicted to healing my trauma. So I
Healing my
totally
trauma.
understand that. I get that.
And there are things that are better to be addicted to than other things, of course. But so yes, opening up your mind, really digging into the past, hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to do. There's still areas of that house I don't go into yet. I've yet to conquer some of that stuff, but I have actually grieved like my childhood, and to move forward. That's acknowledging that pain and that hurt that nobody else would acknowledge. That's
Mm-hmm.
whether it's coddling myself or hugging a pillow or beating the shit out of a pillow.
That's a good one. I like that.
That's the doing the work. And you gave me that, and that's been a wonderful tool. But yes, I had a lot of rage. I was mad at angry with myself. I was a reactor, which is how I raised my children. So there's issues with those relationships that I'm still trying to work on and rebuild and heal. But yeah, none of it would have been possible if I had never had someone who had kind of stuck there and said, well, just keep doing your work, or I understand you're mad right now. We'll come back to this. Let me talk to you later. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. I don't want to make you
Done
mad.
that. I
Bye.
remember. Yeah, it's like, all right, go,
I
go.
mean,
Well, look, I
and
mean,
I'm a fight or flight. I mean, we all have
yeah.
that. I definitely love to fly when I get because I don't want to become combative, but I can. I've had to do that in my life. And that's also not something, that I'm proud of, but not knowing how to respond or react, and just being sort of pushed out or out of the nest. And here I'm just this, I'm an anxiety. I didn't even know I had anxiety. Did you know that nobody had ever diagnosed me with anxiety until well after I was in therapy, probably one of my stints going to rehab, trying to sober up.
Yeah.
And that's
I had a
another thing I want
similar
to say is
experience.
you can't go through these things without being in a clear mind. And that means you have to be clean. You have to be sober. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be willing to let your body feel the pain, even if you don't want to.
I want to clarify
That's
something.
something to
That's
overcome.
absolutely, yeah. And the clear mind, I want to go back to that.
Yeah,
It's not just a clear mind because our mind body connection is so
the
deep
whole thing.
rooted together
Yeah,
that when your
yeah,
body is unhealthy, everything
yes.
is unhealthy because we,
Well, and I
as humans, we experience our understanding of life through our body.
yes,
So if it's
yes,
clouded by
yep,
alcohol or drugs or, trauma, sadness,
sex,
all
whatever.
stuff, whatever, any of the addictions,
Yes,
then we aren't able to hear ourselves and we start disconnecting from ourselves and we
and
start pushing
society
ourselves.
tells you
Oh yeah.
that the other way is, ooh, wine first. Ooh, let's have brunch and get champagne in the morning. We'll worry about that stuff later.
The only thing that
And
shuts
you
the
can run
voices
on that for a
down.
little while,
Yeah, but it doesn't. Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's not a lasting cure. But if you're not in that societal frame of mind, as the culture dictates that, oh, it's Miller time or whatever, just got to get to the weekend so I can party. And there's a lot of that that can keep you going in these circles of not healing yourself. Even though you
right.
think you're doing some healing, you're still not until you get that full on clarity. And it took full on clarity, which took a long time to get to, because I just, as a person, as a human being, I think it's so ingrained in us with the culture, and also the life that I had led up into being without a husband in my life, a partner, which he wasn't a healthy partner, but my life was so toxic. I mean, it was really poison to my
Mm-hmm.
system, myself, to my children. And yet I thought it was normal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's hard to reach people. That's why it was hard for you to even reach me, because I was so deep
Mm-hmm.
in an abusive, toxic culture.
Yeah.
The special forces lifestyle within that unit is, it's secretive.
Well, it
And
has to.
yes,
It
I'm
has to.
writing about these
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, it's not going to be welcomed. There are going to be a lot of people really mad at me over telling the truth about
Well,
what really goes down.
yeah, and as long as you and I've had a hard time with this as well, but there are ways of doing it where you're not
Sure.
actually saying
And
names,
I've done that so far. I've been able
changing
to,
people's, all that kind of stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and I help some of the one thing too, and you can put this in where you want to or whatever. But like, my goal in being an advocate for women, men too, if that were to come up, if that were to arise, I know it works both ways. But right now, I'm coaching someone who I had been friends with a long time in that group society, and she is now divorcing her Green Beret, and I'm assisting her through that. And she came to me and first of all apologized for ostracizing me, as she was told to by her husband, because I left. Once you divorce and you leave, that's it. There's no more support from that group, and you can't be friends with them anymore.
Hmm.
And that, like I say, they're whatever they say is law in the house. So, um, and she's just waking up to her abuse.
Yeah.
And for
Good.
me, this is why it's so important that I continue to do and tell my story and talk about it, because I don't think I had anybody say it to me until maybe you did, and then one other therapist, that I finally got a good therapist, and that took years, said to me, I know you don't see it now, but later you are going to be helping others with this story of yours, with what's happened to you, and that is going to be your reason or your why,
Your
or why,
why. Yep.
instead of the why is this happening to me, what is this teaching me?
Yeah.
And make those things starting to make sense to me. You are literally coming out of a fog cloud mind fuck. I'm just going to say it because that's what I call it.
Okay.
um, well, when you wake up and say to yourself one day, who the fuck am I married to? You think you have one thing, and it turns out it's a complete different thing than what you thought you had. And it's more than devastating. It's life altering.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also your wake up call. I want to say it's your wake up call.
100%. 100%. And the whole reason that this podcast exists is because we are going through a wake up call right now. So
Absolutely.
we need to do the healing. We need to do the grieving, all these different things. And I just want to mention something here before I ask you the questions that I ask everybody that I have on as a guest. So first of all, with everything that Ginger shared, hopefully this is awakening you in such a way that you, as the audience, are recognizing that there is nothing wrong with you. Everybody asks that question, what's wrong with you? That's not what's happening here. What is happening is that you were programmed to believe certain things about yourself that were not true. As a child, you didn't do anything wrong. And it shouldn't have happened as a child. As an adult, this is where you get to take responsibility for being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's what's so important about all this. And I just wanted to clarify that, and just to make you aware that, that's a lot that Ginger's gone through. And there's plenty more where that came from.
There's a lot more.
4 hours, but we can't do that. So just be aware that that the importance of recognizing that about yourself and making the choice, and then being willing to do the work, and then being courageous, which is not easy when there's fear.
Absolutely.
Will get you into the freedom. Ginger, thank you so much for sharing this story. And I realize that it was some graphic detail, but sometimes we just need to kind of tell it the way it is. And we've been silenced for so long that, that's understandable. So especially after everything that you've gone through, if you could offer one piece of advice to someone just starting their healing journey, what would it be?
Just be honest with yourself and be gentle with yourself. I wish I had known what that meant before I went through and beat myself up. But there's a lot of shame associated with this type of abuse. You just be gentle. Take your time. It's not going to be an overnight situation. This is a continuing
Absolutely.
I don't want to call it a battle anymore. Maybe it was a battle in the beginning. It's not a battle anymore of like survival. Now it's more on the rest of my life. I want to be spent knowing who I am, being true to myself, being authentic. So just authenticity is so much. And then the gentleness that you follow up with on yourself, continue the work.
Yeah.
No matter how hard it gets.
Yeah, I actually had to pick the word journey because
journey
more sense because I got tired of fighting. I just got tired of
fighting. Yeah. I used to be stands with fist. Now I'm still standing with but it's a smaller fist and it's like down here.
Oh, but now it's an energetic fist. It's not like a real fist.
It's more of like the empowerment fist. It's not like I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah. So how would you define awakening?
Ooh, rebirth. A chance for you to get to know yourself. You really want to know yourself. You're going to have to go through, and there's going to be many onion as you start to peel those layers. You're going to learn some really beautiful things about yourself, and you're going to learn that there are some things that are not so great. And that's where the work is. That's where the change comes in for the opportunity for growth.
Yeah,
is
absolutely. And I just want to and I wanted to share something. I remember years ago while I was going through my work journey, I think it was about 4 years ago, something like that. And I cut a red onion in half. Yeah. And when it fell open, there was a heart in the middle of it. And I was like, I actually took a picture of it. So yes, when you're peeling the onion, you're getting to the heart. You're
getting to the heart of it, or whatever you want to call it, the meat of it. Don't be scared. It
do
can
your
be
best. Yeah, do your best not to be scared because you are going to be scared.
You're going to be scared.
You're going to be
but
scared.
You just have to yeah, you got to let it happen and be open,
Hmm.
because what comes after is so profoundly, I would say, so much better in life. And for me, it gave me the opportunity to learn to trust myself. I didn't know what that meant. And that's really important, being somebody who didn't. And I put my trust in other people and the wrong people. And now I trust myself and my instincts, and I stick to that. And that's worked really well for me and the
Hmm.
relationships that I have with people now.
Yeah. And that's what
A lot of
awakening.
a lot of quality relationships, not a
Yes.
lot of quantity.
Yeah. Which is fine. I count them on one
Which
hand.
is
That's what they say.
much better,
So,
much better.
what do you believe soul divinity is?
Ooh, I feel like that is where you meet yourself, who you were born to be,
Yeah.
you know, ultimately,
Yeah.
before all the people told you to be something else. Claw end of a hammer, I told you. Um,
Oh, I love when you.
but I do. I believe that's you meeting yourself in your pure form,
Yeah.
and the loving. I know that I'm a good person. I don't think a lot of people out there think I'm a good person, maybe because of how I'm perceived, or my actions, or standing up, or having a voice, or whatever it is, fighting back. No, it's the divine, your divine purpose.
Hmm.
And I think that's, I finally found mine.
Yeah, that's why.
I tried to avoid it for many years, but it's going to catch up to you anyways. You may as well have some kind of handle on it. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It's
Right.
going to catch up to you anyway. Okay. How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, well, they can get in touch with me through my author page, which can be found on my Facebook page. And you just caught me off guard because I don't think I put it up here.
But it doesn't matter. You sent me the links. I just yeah. There's the
Yeah,
book.
you've got the
That's
links and put
yeah.
that. Here's the book. The cover might be different if you order this one in paperback. Otherwise, on ebook, it won't matter. It's got the same content.
The other thing I wanted to mention too is that Ginger started a group called Lotus, which I'm thinking just went over 1,000 because somehow some
It
of my
did.
people ended up
Yep,
in there when we were setting things up.
it
So
did. Slow growth is good. Slow growth.
slow
Yeah.
growth is absolutely perfect. And can you give a brief description then of what Lotus is, because it's so important that
Yes.
those people who've experienced narcissism and
Yes.
go.
So I created Lotus. After that, I got out of that marriage to the special forces soldier, and I got right back into a very narcissistic, abusive relationship. Actually, two of them,
Mm.
which furthered my awakening. More lessons.
That's what they're there
Surprise!
for.
Surprise!
Yay.
But the last one was incredibly covert, malignant, and I had no idea. Like the other ones were very overt narcissists, this was a covert. I didn't know this existed. I had to gain some knowledge very quickly. So upon that sort of recovering, I decided to start a group on Facebook to get some awareness out there about these types of people, because I had not been warned. And until Facebook kind of started pushing that type of stuff, I hadn't really seen too much on this type of behavior. So I threw myself into it, and I just tried to gain all the knowledge that I could. I educated myself. I stayed in therapy and created this group. I first created it privately for women. In support of women that have been in narcissistic. I have since opened it to men. It was 2 years for women only. Now I'm opening it to men because through some of my coaching, I've now come into contact with men who are now starting to acknowledge and realize that they have been in some pretty toxic relationships as well. And so I can't be too feminist and too hard on these guys, because I see that they're also being treated in the same way. So it's open to both now. And it's just growing slowly. And I try to offer support. We send people in the way of whether it's violent, or, you're divorcing, or you need an attorney, or wherever you're living, we can help get you in touch with domestic violence shelters and so forth and so on, depending on what the degree of the abuse is. So
Wow,
Just
perfect.
trying to educate. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And like again, in my life, I experienced narcissism through with my mother, and I've had four narcissistic
Yep.
relationships, two covert
Yes.
and two overt. Actually, the first two were overt. The second two
And then
were,
the second two were, yep, yep.
yeah,
Same
yeah.
for me.
And then it was like, oh, this is interesting. Yeah. So but when you told me about this group, I actually didn't want to really go in that direction. But then little by
I
little,
know.
I started to recognize, and I'm like, huh.
You
So
kept,
you
you
kind of,
kept, I remember we had a conversation and it was like, and I said, but Caroline, it's, uh, if they're narcissistic and they have these traits, you can't not look at them. Like you have to make that part of the
well, I
picture.
didn't want to believe it at the time. And I
Sure.
was like, yeah, now we actually have joined forces.
Yes. Which
So,
is very important.
yeah, because of the work that we've done as in our friendship, the work that we've done together to support each other,
Yes.
and the work that I'm doing with this podcast is actually now being shown over there, among some other things that I'm going to start sharing over there as well. That will
And
help
it's good and
people who are,
balanced.
yeah,
Yeah. It gives a
and
good balance.
yeah, and the thing that I find quite interesting is that they've done research on this, and
Mhm.
somehow narcissists and empaths are attracted to each other.
Absolutely.
If you're an empath, which I'm assuming most of the people who watch me are, then you will recognize that because of your need, unhealed
Yes.
need to heal other people, and the narcissist being very good at seeing that, the attraction comes together, and then we get ourselves into these little, holes. So what happens from there is the healing aspect. And when you heal, you can start seeing the red flags and you won't get pulled into that. And then you don't
That's it.
even, then it becomes about who you are and how you're doing your life, and everybody else doesn't, it's not that they don't matter. It's just that desperation to help them heal, because that's their journey, and your journey is your journey, and you get to do
That's
that,
right.
right?
It's like the push and pull with the empath and the narcissist. It is a perfect setup
Like
for a
this.
taker and a giver. That's
Yeah.
what I see. A
Yeah.
lot of taking on the narcissist part and a lot of giving on the empath part. And
Like
we always want
over.
to heal and help and save.
Yeah.
They want us to heal them. They want our quality. That's why there's that draw. Um,
They
and
want
I
it, but they don't want it, because they draw
well,
to do it. But when they
they
start to see that it
they
goes,
don't know what it is when they're wanting it.
right,
They don't know
exactly,
why they want it. They
right.
just know that whatever it is you have, they need it
Well,
somehow.
that's that love that they didn't receive either, because they are also traumatized.
That
So
depends on mother wound, father wound, same
all
things
that
for
stuff.
sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what it does boil down to in a lot of cases is that narcissist having power over you. And that's really sort of that ultimate line there in the one book that I have on Amazon. It's an ebook. It's not in print yet. I have a list in the back of that book, and it's the list of 10 traits. And I believe I showed it to you briefly when you were here. The Bulletproof Soul.
Oh,
It's
that's
an
right. Right.
that's one of the ebooks. The rest of it, like what I just showed you, this is the poetry. But
Mhm.
if you look this up, you'll probably find Bulletproof Soul, or you can just put my name in, and it has a list in the back there. And if he checks 5 of these, just 5, you got yourself a full-blown narcissist thing. And I'll tell you, that list alone, the first time I'd ever seen anything like that, and it was a roommate I had while I was in rehab, and I told her my story, and she was a doctor, this woman, and she said, oh, sounds like you got yourself a covert malignant. And I said, I'm sorry, what was that? Can you speak English? And she had this list she had made herself, and she copied it off and gave it to me, and I took it, and I still have. And I can remember checking every single box for this guy I was with.
Mhm.
They're like 10 traits. They only need 5. He checked them all. So it was a really good gauge. And it's a gauge people can use if they're thinking about going back into relationships after going through something like this.
And then the other piece that I wanted to say was like that power. That's the all the things that the narcissist is doing I say for you now rather than to you, is also an energetic thing. It's not like
Sure.
it's all under the surface. 9 times out of 10, we don't even know that it's going on until we know how we feel. And then we start to
Absolutely.
recognize. Yeah. So just to close things out, Ginger, thank you so much. I appreciate this. Is there anything else real quick that you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
I wish everybody luck in their journey. And when you heal yourself, you heal your relationships and you heal your children and generations. So it's the most important work you're going to do. And I have to say, for someone who came from such low self-worth, that I'm worth every bit of the work I've done. And I'll never let anybody tell me I'm not, worth that again in my life. And it can be a beautiful thing. It's painful, but it's really, like I said, it'll be the best work you've ever done, and the investment's worth it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Ginger, so much for coming
You're
on.
welcome. Thank you.
I'm so
Thank you for
excited
having
about
me.
this. Absolutely. And to the audience, thank you for being here on Awakening Soul Divinity, and we will see you next time.